Hey, good afternoon. Hope you're having a great day. In this week's Torah portion, we read one of the key central positive and negative commandments of the entire Torah that is very dear to the Jewish people. God says, don't desecrate my name. I will be made sanctified and made holy amongst the Jewish people because I am God, your God. From here we get the negative commandment not to desecrate God's name, heaven forbid, and the positive commandment of sanctifying God's name. What does God's name mean? And of course we know that the reason we have a name is for others to identify us, not for myself. I don't need a name for me. The name is for you to be able to call me at. And the rabbis say in an interpretation that the word don't desecrate God's name and sanctify God's name means that the way the world and the nations of the world view God is the way a Jew acts. When a Jew acts morally and kindly and ethically, when a Jew is proud, when a Jew represents God the right way, then God is sanctified in the world. And when a Jew, heaven forbid, acts in the opposite way, then God's name is desecrated. Because after all, we are the ambassadors of God in this world. We are the light of God to the nations. So just like when you look at the world, at the nature and the trees and Niagara Falls or the Grand Canyon, and you see God expressed through nature, God is also expressed through the Jewish people and through the way we act. But for centuries and decades, we saw the word and message of sanctifying God's name of those who died and perished just because they were Jews and for being Jewish. And although, of course, we know that those are holy people, and every Shabbat in Shul we say the Ava Rachamim to remember these people and the sacrifice they made because they were Jewish, is the same token we have to remember that those who live as Jews and who are proud and protect and care for the Jewish people sanctify God's name through their strength, through their pride, through representing what it means to be a Jew and what it means to protect the Jew. This past Sunday night in Tekoa, Israel, which is in the Gush Etzion area of Judea and Samaria, there was a lovely man, Yair Maimon, and his wife Meirav, who decided to go sit outside their home to have a tea in the evening. How much harm could that be? We're unfamiliar with this because we live in such security and without struggles. But here was this couple. They went outside on their porch, on their mirpeset, to have a tea, and suddenly they look, and the Tekoa has a security fence around it, which is not high. It's only 6 feet high, and it's only 3 feet from their home. 3 meters, excuse me, which is 6 to 8 feet away from their home. And suddenly, they see someone climbing on it. So they say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And the guy starts mumbling, and they realize that it's a terrorist. So they immediately run inside the home, and Yair Maimon, who is a security officer, has a weapon. He goes into his house to get it, and he tells his wife to call the security. By the time he comes out and gets it, the terrorist had already jumped over the fence and had outflanked him and was coming lunging at him with a knife. Without a choice, and to protect himself and to actually sanctify God's name, Yair neutralized the terrorist. All while finding out later that his daughter, his 13-year-old daughter, was in her room upstairs videoing the entire thing and crying in terror. When we live as Jews, when we're strong, when we show that we will protect ourselves and the Jewish people and not be meek, we live as Jews and we sanctify God's name. Well, Avram Maimon, Yair Maimon's brother, wrote this very powerful message to Sivan Rav, who is a commentator and a public figure in Israel. And he says, I want to tell you the other side of the story. He says, our mother, Yair's his brother, so our mother lives in Kiryat Arba. And this Sunday night, this terrible fear overcame her, and she felt something bad might be happening, something intense. And although she was tired because she hosted us all for Shabbat, many of her children and grandchildren, she immediately got up and ran down to the tomb of the Machpelah, the Marat Machpelah, where Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah are buried. And she went to pray and cry by the graves of our mothers and fathers, that nothing bad should happen. When I called her to tell her what happened, this is what he says. When I called her to tell her what happened to Yair and Maimon, before I could say anything, she says, I know something happened. Just tell me everyone's okay. And thank God everyone was okay. The power and the connection, sitting in Kiryat Arba in Hebron and praying for the Jewish people, and her son sitting and sipping tea, just trying to live life, being threatened by a terrorist and being able to neutralize it. A Jew has to always remember that we have to be unwavering in our strength and support to protect the Jewish people, to sanctify God's name, so that we shouldn't die as Jews, but we should live as Jews and live as proud Jews who emulate the word of Hashem, the message of Hashem. Yair Maimon is one such Jew who protected so many people from terrorism and hate. And when they asked him afterwards in an interview in the Times of Israel, how do the people in Tekoa feel after this terrible fright? He says, we don't live in a bubble. We understand where we live and what's going on, but we also have faith in our security in God to protect us all. May we always be able to sanctify God's name through life, through living, through love, through strength and pride in the Jewish people and in Eretz Yisrael. God bless you. Have a great day.